Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to cut a monochrome dress with slit. If this is the kind of video you feel like watching, please hit the subscribe button and let's dive in. So guys, as you can see on the work table, I've gone ahead to draft out my back pattern for the skirt. So this is the first thing I did. I'm going to label this as the back for now, and I'm going to use this to achieve the front skirt so that I will impute my slit there. So the lines for the measurements I marked are the waistline, the hip line, the knee line, and then we have the full length plus 2 inches for the sewing allowance, okay, for the hemming allowance. So what I'm going to do next right now is just to go ahead and use this to draft out the front pattern, okay. I also gave 2 inches around this part for the zipper allowance. After I marked the zipper allowance, all my lines and measurements started after the zipper, okay. So as you can see, I placed my measurements from that line and then I marked all my basic measurements. On the waistline, I have quarter of the waistline measurement plus that intake and 2 inches sewing allowance. Also on the hip line, I took quarter of the hip line circumference plus extra 2 inches for the general sewing allowance. And on the knee line, I subtracted 1.5 inch from the hip. Then I also used the same measurement I had on the knee line on the length. In order to draft the front piece, I went ahead to pin this line all the way from the waistline to the length. And then I'm just going to open up the folds, okay? So I'm just going to open it up and have the right sides facing upwards like this. So I'm just going to duplicate this measurement, this back piece like this. Remember, I have 2 inches folded inwards. That was for the zipper, okay. Now we have eliminated our zipper allowance, so we're going to duplicate this and have the same measurement we have here for the front. So the first thing I'm going to do, assuming this is the front piece, I'll go ahead and mark the dart intake like this, which is 4 inches from the midpoint, okay. So after marking all the points like this, I'll go ahead and connect it into a straight line with my ruler. So guys, the way you're seeing the back piece facing upwards like this, that is how I'm going to be facing the front piece right side to right side with each other. So that way I'll be having the bigger part sitting on the right hand side of the front, while this smaller part is going to stay by the left. And also I'm going to split it into 2 on the front so that I can be able to have 1.5 inch for the slit allowance, okay. In order to duplicate this measurement on the front piece, go ahead and place another fresh fabric on the front, right side to right side facing each other, just like I said initially, okay. Because I want to cut that of the front, I'm going to use this back piece as a guide. Remember, I'm not cutting this back piece, okay. We don't want our slits to be on the right side, we want it to be on the left. That is why we are placing this one right side to right side with each other. Or better still, you can just go ahead and lay your fresh fabric on your table and then use the back piece to place on top with the right sides facing each other. Then fold in the allowance you had on the bigger part, okay. So now, as you can see, I've gone ahead to mark the line and I'm just adding 1.5 inch allowance for the slit, okay. After marking this, I'm going to cut through the line just like you see me doing. So next thing I'm going to do is to cut the sides for the skirt. So as you can see, I'm just trimming out the excesses we had on the fabric underneath so that I have the same shape I have for the back. So now it's coming together. I'll go ahead and take away this back piece and I will just notch this point for the slits, okay. I'm going to notch the allowances so I know where to begin when stitching is together. After doing that, I'll go ahead and take away this back piece and now we have our front piece. Remember, I did not cut our back piece, I just used the line to get this actual measurement you see me working with. Now I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing for the other side of the dress. Remember, I'm having excess fabric underneath, okay. I have excesses there so that I can be able to add our allowances, and I also went ahead to pin it together on that chalk line. Now you can see that the wrong sides are facing each other this time around, and I'm just trimming the sides for the skirt first of all. And what you are seeing on top of it is the same back piece we drafted at the beginning of the video. Lifting up the back piece, you can see we have excess fabric underneath, which will serve for the remaining part of the front skirt, okay. So now that is the line that we marked. I'm going to add extra 1.5 inch for the slit, okay. Remember that the front piece have a slit at the left side, and that is what I'm trying to achieve here. Now I'm just going to notch it on the lower part to know where the stitching allowance begins, and also notch it on the upper part. So guys, after marking all the lines and making all the notches, I went ahead to trim out the excess fabric I have on the fabric. And after I was done cutting through the lines, this is what I have left. I'm just going to unpin it from the back piece. So you can see how it looks like even without unpinning it. You can see that the wrong sides are facing each other, which means this is going to be for the back. That is the zipper allowance, and this is the remaining part of the front piece. As you can see, everything is coming together. So after arranging it this way, this is going to be the place our slit is coming to sit in. I'm talking about the front slit. So I'll go ahead now and mark my dart intake and get ready to cut the lining piece. This is the back piece with the lining piece underneath, and I trimmed out some excess fabric for the zipper allowance, the area where you see the curve for the belt to take shape, and also I went ahead to mark some allowances on the hip area and notch it as well. This is what it looks like after I was done cutting the lining. As you can see, the lining is shorter than the main fabric by about 2 inches, and I'm just going to take that aside and repeat that for the front as well. This is the front piece with the lining piece, and this is also the remaining part of the front. So I'm just going to set this aside and get ready to cut the upper part of the dress. Now this is what we have. What you see here is a rectangular, or rather a square shaped bodice for the front pattern. The back piece has zipper allowance. As you can see, it's wider than the front. Okay, next I'm going to be taking my basic measurements for the upper part. So the first thing I'm going to do is to rule out a line like this as a starting line. Just take it as an example. For instance, you are drafting on a pattern paper, so I have excesses here so that I can accommodate the sewing allowance and the stitching allowance. So next thing I went ahead to do is to measure the bust point of about 9.5 inches, and also I measured the under bust of about 12.5 inches, and that of the waistline measurement of 16 inches, and I'm just going to connect it into straight line with my ruler. So after connecting the bust line, I went ahead to connect the under bust line, and then I headed over to connect the waistline, and I added about 1/2 inch for the joining allowance. So guys, before I continue, this is my shoulder line, bust line, under bust, and waistline. So I'm just going to draft the shoulder line. Okay, so next I'm going to do is just to place the half of my shoulder measurement here, and I'll also go downwards by 1 inch around here for the shoulder slope. So after marking the 1 inch line, I'll go ahead and measure what I have left for the armhole depth. So I have 8 inches. Okay, that's half of the armhole, and coming back to the neckline like this, I'll mark 3.5 inches for the width of the neckline, and then for the depth I'll be marking 3 inches. After doing so, I'll go ahead and use my straight ruler to connect the slope of the shoulder and also connect the depth of the armhole. Next, I'll go ahead to connect the neckline. This is a basic neckline, which is a standard, but it's not the neckline I'll be using. So heading over to the bust point line, I'll be marking the dart intake, which is the bust span, divided into 2. So I'll be marking what I have there plus extra 1 inch sewing allowance, and then after doing that, I'll go ahead and draw a straight line with the ruler, connecting the darts. Okay, now I'll head over to this point. I'm going to divide what I have here into 2 and then get the midpoint. Afterwards, I'll come in by 1/2 inch there and come here on the chest line. I'll be measuring the circumference of the bust and then take the quarter of it and mark it here, and then also mark a line. I'll be connecting the 3 points just like you see me doing. This is really necessary for your curve for the armhole to take shape. Okay, next I'm going to do now is just to go ahead and mark the measurements for the darts. So coming to this under bust, I'll be marking 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, just like you see me doing, and then I'm just going to come upwards at around the bust point. I'll be marking 1 inch away from the bust point underneath like this, and then I'll be using my curve ruler to draw a little curve like this, just like you see me doing. I'll be doing the same thing on the opposite side as well. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to connect the dart legs from that point. So I'll go ahead and mark the dart leg all the way down from the under bust line. After connecting the lines, I'll go ahead and mark the body measurement. So I'll be placing quarter of my bust circumference here, starting from the fold which I had on the front piece. Then I'm going to add extra 2 inch for the general sewing allowance. Okay, and then heading to the bust line, I'll repeat the same thing. My under bust circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch for the dart intake and 2 inches for the general sewing allowance. Then also at the waistline, I'll mark 1/4 of the waistline circumference and then add 1 inch for the dart intake and also add the general sewing allowance of 2 inches. After doing that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect a diagonal line like this, just to connect the lines, okay? And then I'll go ahead and extend this armhole line to complete the curve, okay? So I have 1/2 inch here at the lower part for the joining, and I'm going to also add 1/2 inch for the shoulder joining, just like you see me doing. I'll be connecting my ruler like this. And after I am done, I'll be using my ruler to mark out the zipper allowance because I didn't indicate it initially. So I'll go ahead and just like use the chalk line to identify that, and also extend the neckline into the back like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is just to cut out everything. At the armhole area, I'll be cutting out the back armhole first of all, and later trim out the excess from the front. And then I'll head over to cut out the neckline. I also added 1/2 inch around the neckline. So this is what I had after I was done cutting the neckline. I have 1/2 inch there, and also the difference of the armhole is clear. Now I'm just going to like separate the zipper allowance into 2 parts. After splitting up the zipper allowance, I'll go ahead and make a notch at the lower and the upper part to identify the point where the zipper starts from. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just to separate it, and this is what it looks like after I was done, okay? So I had to fold this front piece once again and align it together so that I can be able to trim out the excesses around the armhole for the front. Remember that when I was cutting, I cut out the back armhole first of all, and now it's time to cut and trim out the front armhole. So guys, I'm also going to place them together once again so that I can be able to trim out the excesses I have below the bodies, okay? And then I'm just going to make a notch here around the darts so that I can be able to identify where I'm folding in for the darts. Whatever I had on the front is going to replicate itself on the back as well. So now I'm just going to open it up for you guys to see how it looks like. This is just the simple bodice we are using for this dress. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just to cut out the monochrome neckline, which is the highlight of this dress. The next thing I'm going to do is to bring the same side piece of the back and then make sure I place them with the wrong sides facing each other, okay? Now I'm going to have the monochrome neckline running from the left into the right, and that is why I'm picking the left side only, okay? So I'll go ahead and align it together on the shoulder line like this, making sure everything is in place. You can also go ahead and pin it together to prevent it from moving. So just go ahead and place your ruler like this, and then just measure what you need to measure for the depth and mark your chalk line. For me, I'll just use my free hand and do this instead. If you have a curved ruler, go ahead and make use of it, whichever way you want to draft the neckline, okay? Make sure that your neckline is not so curved. So this is what I had after I was done marking. Placing my tape rule on it, you can see that I have 6 inches. I'm going to take away 1/2 inch for the joining allowance, and I have 5.5 inches left. So I'll just go ahead and cut through the line. So guys, this is what I had after I was done, and this is what it looks like on the back side. You can see that I cut out only 1 piece for the back so that I can be able to have equal parts on both shoulders, okay, on both sides. Now I'm just going to bring out the remaining part of the back piece and then align it with the right side facing each other on the front piece, and then I'm going to place the other side on the slanted area, okay? So now this is what it's going to look like when you are done stitching. Is going to be giving you this look. So this is the zipper allowance for our zipper, and the allowance I have there is just 1.5 inch. Now I'll go ahead and open it up this way, okay? And then I'm going to use my hands to press it down like this so that I can be able to like know what I'm taking off around the back of the slant. So I'll just go ahead now and just use my chalk to like trace out the same measurement I had on the front, but then I had to use my curve ruler for accuracy. So guys, after marking the line, I will go ahead and use my scissors to cut it out. So this is how it looks like when I open it up. The next thing I'm going to do is to come here at the armhole for the slanted area, I'll come in by 1 inch, and then I'm just going to use my curve to like trim it out and remove excesses there. And then next thing I'm going to do is just cut out the lining piece. So I've cut out the lining piece, and I'll just go ahead and like stitch it like this. The lining piece is facing right side with the main fabric, as you can see. So just place it this way and stitch it at the top of the neckline. Follow the line like this, after which you're going to stitch the inside of the zipper, and then repeat the same thing for the other one as well. And come here at the front piece and stitch only the neckline, just the neckline. So guys, I've gone ahead to stitch the neckline for the front and that of the back piece as well. Next thing I'm going to do now is to notch it all around with my scissors. Please make sure that your notches does not pass through the stitches when notching. After notching, go ahead and turn it on the right side. Okay, what you need to do is just to like top stitch on it, run a top stitch around, and then close it on the sides. So this is what I had after I was done. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just to fix my darts. So guys, after marking the darts once again, I'm going to like fold them like this and then notch the midpoint of the darts so that I can be able to like stitch it on both the lining and the fabric together. So placing my tape rule this way, you can see that I have total of 6 inches for the whole of the dart. So I'm going to be doing the same thing on all other sides of the dress and then stitch them together on the machine. After stitching them together, this is what it looks like. This is what I had. I'm just going to like align them like this with the shoulder facing each other. This is the zipper which we have folded in place and pinned it together. So now I'll go ahead and stitch the shoulder lines. If you want to stitch your shoulder lines, please go ahead and open up your fabric this way, lining piece to lining piece and fabric to fabric. Do well to see that the stitches are in the middle and then stitch it by 1/2 inch like this. And after you're done stitching, it should look like this. Okay, you should have your bodies coming together this way. This is the armhole for the complete shoulder, and this is the armhole for the off shoulder. So guys, this is the skirt pattern for the dress. I'll be joining the skirt pattern together with the lining piece, but that will be in our next video. With that being said, we've come to the end of this tutorial. Please do well to hit the subscribe button and tap on the notification bell. Bye for now.